So in the previous example, we looked at delta G, delta H, and delta S kind of conceptually. But now we're actually going to plug some numbers in. It says calculate delta G for the reaction at 85 degrees C if delta H is minus 34.6 kilojoules and delta S is minus 114 joules per K. Is the reaction spontaneous? So remember that if delta G is positive, the reaction is not spontaneous, and if delta G is negative, the reaction is spontaneous. You also need to know that delta G equals delta H, the enthalpy, minus T delta S, the entropy. All right, a couple of things before we start plugging numbers in. First thing to remember is that the temperature has to be in Kelvin. Okay, so we can't plug in 85 degrees C. We got to add 273 to that. You can't see that. So we have to add 273 to that to give us a temperature here of 358 Kelvin. Okay. The other thing to note is that the delta S is in joules and the delta H is in kilojoules. So I'm going to convert this to kilojoules because delta G's are commonly given in kilojoules. So I'm going to divide this by 1,000, which is negative 0.114 kilojoules per K. So I just converted that from joules to kilojoules by dividing by 1,000 so that we have the same units. Now we can plug in. Delta G equals delta H, which is minus 34.6 kilojoules, minus T, which is 358 K, times minus 0.114 kilojoules per K, like that. So we multiply these two together, and then we're going to add them to this one. Okay, so in this case, the delta S is unfavorable, all right, because we're increasing or decreasing the randomness, sorry, it's negative, and delta H is favorable towards delta G being spontaneous because it's an exothermic reaction. So this is going to be spontaneous at some temperatures, but not spontaneous at other temperatures. Specifically, at a low temperature, this will be spontaneous because the lower this is, the more the delta H will be the overwhelming factor and the less the T delta S will be the overwhelming factor. Anyway, in this case, delta G mathematically equals 6.2 kilojoules. So at this temperature, delta G is positive, so this is a non-spontaneous reaction. Right, I forgot the S. A non-spontaneous reaction because the delta G is positive. Again, because delta H is negative and delta S is positive, this is, or excuse me, and delta S is also negative, this is going to be spontaneous at lower temperatures.